Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today, I'm super excited to welcome back to the show Robert Neuhauser, who's the Executive Vice President and Global Head of Talent and Leadership at Siemens. Welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Hi, Chris. Everything's fine. Thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. How long has it been? Was it like a year ago, or it seems?
Yeah, something like that.
Or maybe 2 years ago, actually.
The time is flying with COVID, so it might be even 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I have not checked yet.
Firstly, how are you? How's the family?
Everything is fine so far. So we were very lucky so far, and unfortunately, it seems that it stays like that at least for the moment.
Fantastic.
So should be fine.
I was saying to you before the show, for everyone listening as well, like your last episode is the #1 most downloaded HR podcast.
It's amazing.
I don't know if you've got some special people working in the background pulling some strings.
I think you probably just had fun asking difficult questions.
Oh, is that what it was? No, I must say, if any of your team are listening, you have an incredible team. Your HR comms team, or just overall, are amazing, and they're fantastic at sharing great insights from you and the rest of the leadership team. And also really filtering through your employee brand, etc. So definitely, if any of those people are listening right now, keep up the great work, because I'm very, many companies do a very bad job at that. So yeah.
Indeed, there's this one thing that might lead us even in the conversation. But sometimes when people ask me what's the future of HR, what are the skills, I typically answer with it's probably one third marketing, 1/3 communication, and the rest is psychology. And we try to live this actually, because we want to influence behavior of people and teams. And if you think about how to influence behavior of people and teams, probably should not think too much about processes, but about the things that work also in the consumer arena. So invest in communication, in marketing, and to some extent in understanding the behavioristics of people.
I completely agree. That sort of intersection of marketing and HR is getting closer and closer together.
Absolutely.
And especially now where we're all so distributed, the way that we connect, right, is through social media, is through things like LinkedIn, Instagram, even TikTok. I'm even seeing companies using TikTok now, right, to reach that audience. Yep. And again, rather than like we've done for so many years, try and drag everyone to us, let's go to them, where they like to consume content. And it's refreshing. I was just saying to you about your recent LinkedIn video. It's really refreshing to see that type of content on LinkedIn and leaders being vulnerable and just sharing it. It's not overly rehearsed, it's just...
it has all the grammar mistakes in there that Germans typically do in English. So it's, but it works.
Yeah,
it works.
Amazing. Well, look, let's jump in. We've got a lot to talk about, and a lot's changed since we've last spoken as well. What are some of the sort of drivers that are sort of you're seeing right now that are disrupting HR in the workplace, and how can we shift these paradigms?
I think that many people know them. The question is how radical you really think about them and how serious you take them. It's, I guess, obviously one thing in the pandemic showed this very clearly is the unpredictability in business that translates automatically in predictability for careers, for learning, for everything we do in traditional people organizations. It's getting unpredictable. The cool stuff that you mentioned already about technology, that while the unpredictability makes life really, really difficult for us, the technology makes it extremely simple, again, because we suddenly can reach all the people. The third thing that I really love is there's a next generation of managers coming in now that really believe in data and science and what we learned about behavioristic of people. And not just on beliefs, but really take science serious. And obviously, next generation coming in, challenging many of our traditional thoughts on each and every level in the business. And then from my perspective, I quote typically those four, if people say what is changing, that unpredictability, technology, the science, acceptance in HR, and the next generation really helping us also to pilot things because they think differently. So that's kind of key drivers for me.
With so much going on though, how do you and the team decide where to spend your time and resources? Because there's, a million things you can be spending your time and energy on. You mentioned 4, but within each of those 4, there's multiple layers, in there.
I guess it in most cases it starts with the business, and in our case this means we see as many other companies also big transformations in our businesses due to the disruption of digitalization, and this means really helping our people to understand what this means in their environments, business wise, but also on the personal in the personal environment directly, because their work is changing massively. So empowering our people for enabling them for this different digital business models that we're running in is really important for us at Siemens. Mm-hmm. And for leaders, the focus goes very much on the topic how to lead if I have no clue.
I definitely could hold my hand up and felt like I felt like that a lot in the last 2 years.
Yeah, but I think sometimes, obviously, this is a little over exaggerated, but we need to be blunt on some of those things. Yeah. Many leaders have no clue where the business is going. They have no clue what the right ways to tackle the problem are. And it's recently in a talk I said it's a horror. Leadership is a horror at the moment because most of the things are gone. So I think that's the second part, enabling people on the digitalization journey. And the second part is helping leaders to cope with the fact that they have no clue.
Yeah. So how are you going about achieving this with your own team then, and providing that training, guidance, etc.?
Well, one thing, again, this might be different for different companies. For Siemens, we are a very technology-oriented company. We have very analytical people on average. So even if you approach the problem of not knowing, you need to approach it analytically. Okay. So we put a lot of effort into the discussion of what is changing. Things are unpredictable. And helping people to accept that if things are unpredictable, you can plan them. If you can plan them, you don't have a plan. This is normal. And only then you can start discussing, okay, what could be then solutions to this? Why is high-speed iteration a problem to some of those things? What does this mean if you want to do high-speed iteration? What processes don't fit high-speed iteration? So even on the coping with the unplannable, we typically try to go a very rational path to discuss this. Mm-hmm. What's not really working in our case, and might be different for other companies, if you come from the I'd call it the soft side. So saying, we need a different culture and we need different organizational models and things like that. So the area where we tend to come sometimes from an HR perspective, because we know some of the answers, we try to push them into the company, say this is the solution, but the people won't follow. If you have analytical people, like in our case, you need to go the route of telling this is the analytical, rational reason why you're lost.
But you can't. But when it comes to things like leading with empathy, you can't see that in numbers.
No, you can't see it in numbers, but still you can rationalize it. You said, why should I? Why should I?
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. So it's the why is delivered. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you see white? I'm overdoing it now. Black and white. If I lead in a completely process-driven world. And I exaggerate now.
Yeah.
I don't need empathic leadership. I just say, this is the requirement. This is the input. I expect this output from you. And if you're not delivering, I replace you. In a world where people know that I have no clue as a leader, they know that no one else has. They know that the process won't fit anyhow. They need to contribute to the best of their knowledge to something that no one can specify for them very clearly. Yeah, there might be a reason why empathy becomes far more important in these times than in a very traditional mechanistic tayloristic system. And that are kind of the discussions that we lead to, and to help sometimes people to find this bridge and think, yeah, I get this rationally. And this is a first step towards then accepting that they really dig into the hard work of getting a little better on this one.
Yeah. It's hard though, right? Because I remember when we were going through this, the tough challenge at the beginning of the pandemic, and I had to sit with the team, and I had to just say, I don't know what we're going to do. And that's probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have. I would say, I actually don't know if we're going to make it through, what the future of the company is going to be. However, we're going to come up with a plan together, and 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 make it happen, right? And it was I remember being at home speaking to my wife, like, what do I do? Do I just say it's going to be okay and pretend I have a plan and going there strong and show strength, or do I go in there and be vulnerable and say, I need your help, we need to come together and figure our way through? And I took that approach, but it was tough to be able to do that
for all parties.
Yeah, for everyone. Yeah, exactly. I think everyone really appreciated it though, because it kind of, everyone realized that business is not one person, right? It's the whole, everyone in the business comes together to contribute to that. And if it wasn't for the team's ideas and also deciding to work through, because many companies in the UK at the time furloughed, and I think if we would have furloughed, there probably wouldn't have been a business to come back to.
Yeah.
There wouldn't. No. Actually, now I know there wouldn't have been. So,
looking back is easier.
Yeah, it definitely is. Is this what you mean when you talk about, because you talk about before, like the old myth of a perfect leader? Is that also what you mean by that?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that contribute to this. I think you can approach this from a more scientific side and just say, how much evidence do we have that a specific leadership profile really provides sustainable positive contribution? And while we see many books published and many studies, if you do the average of all books and all studies, you finally end up, there's very little correlation of a specific leadership style to success. So even from a scientific perspective, I'm not really very convinced that something like this exists. But specifically, if we now talk from an unpredictable environment, we know it would be the worst thing, even if there is something like a perfect leader for a specific environment, to just reproduce those perfect leaders, because you create monocultures. And monocultures are terribly efficient if you have a very stable environment. And if things are perfectly plannable, then monocultures are great. If things get a little unstable, monocultures are terrible. They are not robust. They can't adopt. And if you take this very simple logic, then in the past already, we couldn't find a perfect profile. Now we are in a space where things get unpredictable. It's not only not existing, it would be really stupid to have 10 similar perfect leaders. Mm-hmm. So, and that's something that was a major shift for Siemens also in the last couple of years, 3 years.
So is that where the diversity piece comes into play then?
Absolutely. And really also in all the leadership programs, were only 5-6 years ago, we still had programs where we compared people to kind of an ideal idea of what a leader should do and be, and then worked on the weaknesses, and we completely turned this around. Forget it. It's stupid, probably one of the more stupid things you can do. Rather, be really proud of your strengths. So if you get the people in our leadership program, we help them to understand their strengths and really actively say to them, be proud of your strengths. Don't worry about the parts where you're really weak. Yeah. Don't worry, but be open about them and invite other people to compensate for this. Mm-hmm. That's what we try to bring across to them, and this is quite fundamental change in how we develop our leaders, how we how we select them also. And into
I love
teams.
that, honestly, because unfortunately your first example is still, I think, the majority of how we still do things. It's like this perfect picture and everyone's being trained to be this perfect leader, right? It's definitely how I was, the companies I worked for previously, how things worked. And I always felt a bit insecure because I never felt like I fit these molds that were there. I was I'll give you an example. We were at a workshop and a leadership retreat, sort of 2 days. And at the end of the 2 days, we had to do a presentation and around our why, our purpose, and how that links back to our businesses. And I got this, they gave me a sheet with almost like boxes to fill in.
Yes.
And I felt it, and they were like, write down all of your why, your purpose, and how that linked back to it. And I felt really constricted because I'm a creative person. So what I did, I ignored the instructor and I went and got a whiteboard and I drew a picture of my purpose.
Yeah.
And I animated it, and I on the mountain, you could see how many years it was going to take, and this is where I'm going to hire people, and the trees represented employees, and I was like, here's me, right? Because I was like, you're asking me to write it down on a piece of paper, it doesn't inspire me. and I still have that picture here. So when I see that, I can visualize the future of our business and the leaders and everything along the way. But I felt like I had to fit this into this box that I wanted. So yeah, it doesn't work that way. And I realized myself and Shane, one thing I learned from that retreat is we both have different strengths and weaknesses, but us two together are a very strong combination. Yes. But for many years, in the first maybe 2 or 3 years of our company, I was actually focusing on certain parts of the business that were actually my weaknesses. And same with Shane. And then when we got back, we said, you're no longer doing this. You're no longer doing that. We're going to focus on our strengths. And it just took us to a whole nother level of where we were going. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. What about incentive systems? We've seen a lot of work happen in the last 18 months as well around incentive systems. And I know you've got quite a strong opinion on this and why they should change.
Yes. And again, I think if you take some of the things serious. So first of all, the unfortunate things is that incentive systems is the first thing that comes to mind of unexperienced leaders when they want to do something to motivate their people. This is an amazing experience that every early leader thinks immediately about incentives when talking about people. This is very frustrating because they always think about this and this would motivate my people. And this is one of the things that, again, going back to science, we know from science, it's not going to work. It's not going to work that you motivate people. So forget about this, forget completely. Incentives do something, as we know, but not motivating people. They create environment where people get either attracted or frustrated if they don't fit into the way those incentive systems are designed. And they don't care that much about the money itself or the rewards itself. It's about how it's designed. They feel treated either fairly or unfairly. And so while you can't motivate people, obviously do something to the culture of your company by attracting or repelling the one or the other. And so designing incentive systems is a lot about designing culture in your company. Mm-hmm. And then you need to be very, very aware. It's not about motivation. You are crafting a culture. If you craft incentive systems that are more resembling gambling things, then you attract people who love gambling. If you create incentive systems where people win that have their elbows out, you create systems that attract people who have their elbows out. This can be fine if you want to run a business that requires this.
What do you mean by elbows out? Sorry, Robert. What do you mean by elbows out? I've not heard that expression before.
This is probably a German picture. It's about being very egoistic.
Oh, okay.
And really optimizing yourself.
Okay.
Sometimes this is the right driver for business, then you can do this, but it's not motivating people per se. It's just attracting this kind of species into your company. And overall, and now we come to the more fundamental trends, what we see more and more collaboration in many areas required. So be very, very careful in whatever you do that attracts very egoistic people. Might not be very helpful. So therefore, I'm very, very careful on incentives as a whole. First, because most of the time they're used for the wrong purpose, which is creating motivation, which they don't. And the second, not seeing how aggressively they can change your culture in the long run by attracting or repelling the right or the wrong people. Mm-hmm. So we have become very, very careful on individual incentive systems in the meantime for this reason and for operational reasons as well.
The first part I definitely relate to, because I think even when I became a manager, I was like, we've got all these incentives to motivate you. And we learn very quickly that that's not the case. And you're right. In many ways, your incentives define the culture, right? Because that's kind of what you're rewarding, etc., and the type of people you attract to that. We're seeing another shift now, though, aren't we? In the last, again, driven by the pandemic, to more of a personalized reward and benefits packages, and companies are now, this one size fits all model doesn't work. Are you reassessing that as well?
Yeah, we see the same thing. Still, you need to be very careful whether it's then kind of the traditional yearly incentive package, or whether you are just taking more care about your people and what really counts for them in the respective phase of their life. Because in some, just taking the life cycle of an employee in the career, there are times where cash is really, really important.
Yeah, when you want to buy a house.
Exactly. And there are times when cash is not that important, but safety is important.
Yeah. And
there are times when none of the two is important, but having easy access to childcare is a topic. So it's really something where we need to become much more open also over the life cycle, not just saying this is the right package now, we finally found it, but being far more flexible. But this goes beyond the incentive topic. This is just, how do I optimize value for my employees without spending more money? And this is about knowing better what they want in the respective phase of their life at this very moment in time. And it's value for both. I don't have to pay more. And the employee says, and this is exactly what I need, what you provide.
Yeah. So, I always find it quite strange when I first got a job that I was having conversations around pension contribution. That was like the furthest thing away from my mind of like, do you want to opt into your I was like, who cares? I was like, I'm 22. Who cares about right now I'm trying to figure out how to get some money to go on holiday or what we're hearing now, right, is, I want to, for me, it's about the flexibility to work wherever I want to work from, as a benefit. Or as you mentioned, I'm a parent. For my wife and I, it will be childcare for our 3-year-old daughter. Yes. So exactly. And do you think, because I'm wondering, do you think you've had probably more conversations and read more research than I have, it's going to be more expensive for companies, or they will actually save money by making it more tailored?
I think that's why I formulated it this way, deliberately, because it's always easy to just say, we throw more money at people and then they are more happy. Therefore, I framed it deliberately like this, that even if the goal is not to spend any more money, we could still create much more value for the employee. And that's probably the goal. So for sure, a company could decide, in addition to that, I want to spend more money on my employees. Mm-hmm. But even if not, this is a win-win situation.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be that's the one area I'm seeing so much disruption taking place. Even I was speaking to Airbnb yesterday, and that they've basically, their global head of HR operations has put together a team that basically works with their payroll team, and you can kind of say, Robert, I want to go and work in, the Caribbean. and they will go in this system, okay, given the tax laws and X, Y, and Z, you can go there for 150 days and then you have to come back. And so they've got this system that they've set up where employees can work with their payroll and HR team, and it's a bit more, fancier than what I'm saying. But they can do that now.
No.
It's that's unheard of, to be able to have that flexibility. And you imagine the amount of employees that are going to have a better experience, they're going to retain, etc., that can now have these incredible experiences of working from all over the world. In the past, we just say that's impossible. You can't do that. Yeah. It's not going to work, right? And I thought that was pretty cool to see a company now, and there's many companies popping up in these spaces to be able to do that as well. Yeah. So
we're also experimenting with this, but indeed probably not as radical as Airbnb.
It's very complex, right? All the laws. There's a lot of. I was using the Caribbean as an extreme example, but there's a lot. Is very complex, right? That that space. All the different laws, legislation.
If you try to map every person on every country, it's getting really, really difficult. But indeed, there are spaces where this is easier. You can. There are countries that are easier, and there are combinations of country and people that are easier. And if you restrict yourself to this part, you can create something that is not too complicated. This might then be difficult for a Caribbean who wants exactly to work in Luxembourg. That might be just a bad combination, which is difficult. But for a couple of typical combination, a couple of companies are working on that, including also Siemens.
Yeah, fantastic. What about career planning? In terms of people owning their own careers, why is this so important? Just want to hear, your approach that you're taking.
Again, going back to the key drivers of our business, uncertainty being one of them. If you take uncertainty serious, forget about career planning. How would you plan if you can't plan? This is stupid. and again, and that are kind of the things. As you know, I'm a trained physicist, so I try to follow very simple models, and that if something is not plannable, don't plan. And this is true for careers. If you can't plan careers, don't plan careers. And then it comes back to the question, what then? And that first, don't plan. Second, if you can plan, try. And so if we should do something as HR to help people driving their career, we shouldn't tell them to plan, but rather to try and to lower barriers for trying. And so we try to rather radically look through all the processes and all the communication we do. But where are we still trying to tell people to plan? Can we kill this? And can we lower barriers for trying? Be it shadowing someone, having very open job markets, and I mentioned this, I think, last time when we talked, getting rid of global job grading systems.
Yes.
That typically create barriers because you want to learn something, but unfortunately it's lower grade. So you don't go there because you get less money. That's career killers. So lowering barriers on all of those edges. But what fascinates me sometimes is on these HR topics that we sometimes fail to make this very simple conclusions, like if you can't plan, don't plan.
Yeah. Do you know, it sounds so simple, but you're like, if you think I can't name anyone in my friends and family circle or, even my business connections that actually planned their career and that's how it went. No, I certainly didn't. I didn't plan on ending up here where I am right now. It doesn't, you're right. And it's quite demotivating because you kind of know it too. that it's not this ladder that you go up. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
And still many companies, including Siemens, had till a couple of years ago, difficult systems where people had to enter what most likely the next steps would be. We said, hey, it's not going to happen. We even did this analysis and checked how often this was right. This was a very, very low 1%, very low one-digit number in percentages where this happened, what people thought they would do.
Wow.
So it was just useless. But sometimes we still cling to these kind of processes.
What's the feedback been like? Because when we last spoke, that you had just started that journey.
Yeah.
How's it been since? Give us kind of an update.
I would say it people got it rather quickly in terms of really also repeating the story, because the same thing
what was the story? How did you tell it?
The story basically is, yes, there is no one who plans it for me. Yes, indeed. Thanks for HR for telling me that this is not the case. Because exactly like you said, there was this strange mismatch. People knew that they never got help on really planning their career, that it never worked, that there were talent programs out there that were supposed to help them to somewhat follow a specific path, but it never realized. And so it came really to some relief, I would rather say. That's it. Finally, you at least tell me.
Yeah.
And they were not angry.
They feel like it was opposite. Do they feel more empowered now?
I think yes, but we still not enough. Okay. Still not enough. We still put a lot of effort in communication in terms of first communication. In terms, yes, please do so. It is okay. It's also okay to leave your boss if you're not satisfied with your boss. Do so. It's surprising how difficult some very logical decisions are for people. I have a lot of discussions with talent groups in our company. Robert, but what do I do if I have a really bad leader? And you should design kind of a process to help that still my career can progress even if I have a bad leader. And you said, no. Leave that leader. This is the process. I can't help you.
Yeah.
But still, even in groups of highly promising talents, we see those kind of feelings of being not empowered or being stuck somewhere. Hey, you're intelligent. Own your career. Get the networks. Get out there. Talk to other people. You're not a slave of your leader. It's amazing how hard this is to get into.
It's a big shift. I feel like the newer generation will pick it up a lot quicker, and because they're not have those predetermined biases, or if you've been doing it for so long, you've been in the corporate world for 20, 30 years. That's very tough to get out of that mentality. But are you seeing in your younger population, they're much more open to for example, your marketplace? I'm assuming you have anyone can apply for any role at any level in the marketplace, right? If I remember correctly.
Right.
Are you seeing a lot more of the younger generation taking advantage of that?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's the right thing to do, but it's not only the younger generation. I think it's really people start to get the whole idea, but it's a journey over many years. Definitely. Yeah. We've trained people differently. We've really, and we have also, as HR, we don't feel comfortable to promote this because it gets us out of the game, basically.
Really? You think that's an element of it?
I think it's not as easy. Traditionally, we were proud of being the middleman between the talent and the position. And now we are the user experience experts designing the platform where the talent and the position find themselves.
It's very different.
This is very frustrating for someone who takes pride in coaching people into the right position.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a big shift. Yeah, more. Yeah, there's multiple shifts happening. The employee population, but also internally within the actual HR function itself, right? Because that's a completely different way of working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads us nicely into the
1/3 marketing, 1/3 psychology.
Yeah. Well, on that point, then it wasn't part of our questions, but what are the core skills, hard and soft skills and competencies you think that the HR leaders of tomorrow are going to have to be successful?
I just came out of a discussion an hour ago. We had an interesting discussion about what should HR bring to the table to be respected by business. Standard discussion in the HR space, and more and more people conclude this is probably the wrong question anyhow. we should no longer talk about HR. We should talk about we're part. We are business.
You are the business. Yeah, that
we
frustrates
are
me so
business.
much. Yeah.
We are business. And it happens that fortunately, like you guys have a little bit more knowledge about some software architectures, I happen to have a little bit more knowledge about how people behave. And but starting the question of what we can contribute to the business is already the big mistake at the very beginning.
I agree. It's like when I keep hearing people talk about HR business partners. Drives me insane. I'm like, HR is the business. Why do we don't have marketing business partners or sales business partners or or finance business partners, but we have these HR business partners and we talk about how do they add value. Yeah,
you could in the past, if I do again the black and white picture of a mechanistic picture of a process-driven company, there you could outsource to some extent the people topic to an HR function. And the role of the HR function was to create normalized people that could be plugged into this process machine at the right quantity. Now we need a completely different thinking about how company works, not with static process frameworks, much more fluidic, much more empowerment of the people. Suddenly, the way how people behave is not a disturbing factor. It's the driver for business. Mm-hmm. And in such an environment, you can't outsource the people topic to a function that creates normalized people to plug it into this machine. And I think that's the key driver why we probably need to stop thinking about talking HR or HR organizations, but rather say happily to have experts that have a little bit more knowledge about behavior of people and how to influence people at scale.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I agree. And every time I hear that conversation brought up, it does annoy me. It's like, we keep hearing about it, right? It's just constantly, we should change the narrative needs to change.
Yes.
As well. Before I let you go, I want to jump into sort of our quick fire round that we have. So I'm going to ask you, we have 8 questions. Okay. And you've got 30 seconds for each question. Are you ready?
I'll try.
What are your hobbies outside of the business?
Outside the business, I love to go hiking and skiing.
Nice. What I could have guessed that. No, if you we maybe this is the answer you just gave, but if you could click your fingers and change one thing about HR right now, what would it be?
Much more strategic.
Yeah. How would your
business
family
strategic, not HR strategic, business strategic.
Mm-hmm. How would your friends and family describe what you do for a living?
They have no clue.
No, go on. If they had to say one thing, what do you think they would say if you asked them?
He's trying to make sense of things and people pay him for that.
Okay. Fair enough. What legacy would you like to leave behind for your family?
For my family?
Mm-hmm.
This is hard. Good education for my daughters and a good environment that they live in. I guess this is, but this was a hard one.
No, I know that one's a tough one, but I think both of those points are very, I would say something similar as well. Have you ever considered quitting HR?
Absolutely, many times, and this is not because of dissatisfaction, but because I'm a very curious person. And so I'm very much curiosity driven. And if I feel that things are not moving or I can't influence something so that something new comes up, I get bored pretty quickly. Fortunately, Siemens is a pretty cool company in that, so we avoided quitting, but it's nothing that is very far. And I think this is also important to have this kind of a growth mindset in times trying to explore new things all the time.
It's exactly why I asked that question, for that exact reason as well. It doesn't have to be a negative.
No.
People always see it as a negative, whereas
No.
me quitting my job and starting HR Leaders was very much a positive, because I wanted to start something new, explore, grow, learn. Yeah. What's the biggest investment you'd say that you've made in yourself?
In myself, that is pretty easy, but very straightforward. That I went to the US, to the MIT for a postdoc. That was something where there was an investment. My girlfriend at that time, now wife, stayed here in Germany. We flew back and forth all the time over the Atlantic Ocean, which was, we were not so clear about the environmental impact at that time. That was quite an investment.
Wow.
But worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Who would you say is the one person that had the biggest impact on your career?
On my career, there was one person who told me to get coaching on communication, knowing exactly that it was not coaching about communication, but coaching about life. And basically, this person helped me to understand that.
Can you say the name or not? Can you say the name?
Sorry?
Can you say the name?
It's yes, I can say it's first name Bernd for those people who know him. Mm-hmm. That was really, really helpful, because he basically, making a long story short, he told me, you can make a career without wearing expensive watches and nice suits. And if you can't, what have you lost? Yeah. And because I felt very uncomfortable in those environments of, how do you say this? Big cars, big cars, big mouth, and didn't want to become one of those. And just said, then don't. Just make a career without that.
Yeah. No, I love that. I respect that. And then last question, what's one piece of advice you give to sort of the HR leaders of tomorrow?
Leave HR and come back later.
Are you serious?
No, I'm serious.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that one. Okay, elaborate.
The reason for this is, if you want to be able to talk trustworthy about business, you need to get out of this trap that people see you only as the HR guy. They need to see you as the intelligent business guy who happens to know more about HR than I do. And therefore, to get them out of this trap, I really encourage many of our young talents, specifically early in your career when this is easy, go outside HR, even if you love HR, and come back at a later point in time. You're much more trustworthy and much more competent than if you stay in HR for the next 25 years.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's kind of one of the correlations that I've, after 400 episodes of this show, I've noticed that the most successful HR executives have done exactly that. And they always reference that as part of their success. And they look back at taking that time, going to work in supply chain, sales, operations, marketing. That is what gave me the credibility and the knowledge and experience to be here. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, look, listen, it was a pleasure as always. I knew it was going to be fun, and thank you so much for coming back. It's always great to have you on the show, and keep up the amazing work, and I look forward to doing this again soon.
Thanks, Chris. See you.
Thanks.
Have a great day.